Hello and welcome to the latest episode of the Good Dram Show with me, Chris Goodrum. As you can see, today we're back in my tasting room and a little bit more of a relaxed atmosphere, I guess, should we say. So, what are we tasting today? I thought it was about time that we looked at wine cask finishes. Now, it's quite a contentious issue, the whole business of finishing a whiskey in a cask that once held some other wine or other. Obviously, sherry is used quite regularly, but although we are looking at one particular sherry finished whiskey, mainly when we talk about wine finishes, we talk about finishing in casks that have previously held things like port or sauternes or wine in general. Now, the whole idea of finishing whiskey in wine cask was pioneered by Glenmorangie, and their portwood finish I think is absolutely wonderful. It's one of the best that you can get on the market. We're not tasting that one today because in due course I'll do a Glenmorangie tasting, including the portwood finish and the Nectar d'Or, which is Sauternes cask finish, but that's for another day. So after Glenmorangie pioneered the whole idea of finishing whiskey in wine casks to give the whiskey something slightly different, a nuance, should we say, this was taken up by the independent bottling company Murray & McDavid, and to a certain extent Bruichladdich, as they obviously are hand in hand, and they still do an inordinate number of wine cask finishes, almost with a messianic zeal, should we say, did they get into it, and literally everything that you could think of was finished in some form of cask or other. A number of them worked quite nicely, a number of them didn't. A number of them were just too heavy on the finish, that the wine would mask any kind of character from the distillery. And if you have a look at my WordPress blog, you'll see a number of the tasting notes from those types of whiskey that I've tasted over the years. And so when you're finishing a cask in a wine cask, balance is the key, and not to overdo the amount of finish. Of course, this is not a science. You can leave your whiskey in an ex-Tempranillo cask for a few years. You taste it, you think, yeah, this is going okay, maybe a little bit longer. A few weeks later, and bingo, it's gone over the hill. You're suddenly just going, oh my God, all I can smell is wine. So it's not an exact science, although I have to be said that Murray & McDavid have now been doing it for quite a long time and have got it, more or less right on most occasions. But again, a number of them, some people have argued that it's been used to sort of cover up poor whiskey, which, not saying in Murray & McDavid's case that is true, but I think in some cases certainly the use of first fill sherry casks kind of masks a lot of imperfections, shall we say. Anyway, I think that's enough yap. Shall I introduce the whiskies that we'll be tasting? Right, okay, well, I've chosen three which I think are quite interesting to look at. We have the Bushmills 16, which is a vatting of malt that's been aged in both bourbon casks and sherry casks. It's then vatted together and finished off in export casks. Quite interesting. It's an unusual way of doing things, it has to be said. Normally they'll take the whiskey that's been aged in generally speaking in bourbon casks and then put it into the wine cask, rather than mix it all together and then give it a finishing. So that should be quite interesting. We'll see how that one goes on. This is the previous distillers edition of Lagavulin. As you know, Diageo do a distillers edition for pretty much most of the classic malts, all of the classic malts in fact, which are all finished in some form or other of sherry cask. So this particular Lagavulin is finished in the very sweet sherry cask called Pedro Ximenez. So we expect it to give quite a bit of sweetness to this malt, and it'll be interesting to see how the peat and very sweet sherry kind of works together. And finally, the Longrow, the Burgundy wood finish. Again, it will be interesting. Sometimes peat and wine cask finishes are just very odd bedfellows. They don't kind of work particularly well. Too many strange flavour combinations, but you know, we'll see how this one pans out. And of course, as you can see, this one's a bottle at cask strength. So. Right. Okay. Shall we start with the Bushmills then? Like I said, this has been aged in a combination of bourbon and sherry cask, and then finished in port. So you know, we're expecting quite a complex nose. So let's see what we get. Yep, you're certainly getting some wonderful dense sherry. There's some vanilla from the American oak, and just above it is this light, spicy red fruits, a touch of pomegranate maybe, apple, lovely citrus, touch of burnt wood possibly. But this is a very harmonious, this is very balanced. This is just what I love when it comes to a whisky nose. None of the flavours are particularly dominating the other, and it's just wonderfully harmonious. Yeah, there's a bit of herbalness from the sherry, and which is giving it that rich character as well. And like I said, you've got just above it, you've got that slightly spicy red fruit. Yeah, a bit of earthy, grumbly spice. That's a gorgeous note. It's getting slight perfume now as it's opening up. A little bit more of the American oak showing. Okay, let's see what this is like in the palate then, shall we? Or on the palate, as the case may be. Oh, that's complex. That's lovely. Starts off with dates, dried fruit, a little bit of walnut, some sherry cask richness. Then it's sort of moving through with a little bit of cream caramel, slight custardy, and then on the finish you get the wine cask, the port wood coming through with that lovely appley, spicy red fruit. Lots and lots of spice. Really does, almost, it flows effortlessly, and like I said, opening certainly with the rich sherry fruit, and then moving through the flavours. Lovely progression. It's just such a stunningly good whisky, and you know, you can't ask for a lot more from a whisky in that wonderful progression of flavours. And you are still getting some of the character. You're getting some of that slightly austere kind of crisp Bushmills character, which is, you know, there, and certainly not swamped by all of the multitude of casks that it's been aged in. So if you like your Bushmills but have never had that, then certainly one worth going for. Okay, let's look at the Lagavulin. Now, what do we know about Lagavulin? Well, it's peated, yeah. It's quite rich to start off with. They use a fair degree of sherry in the standard sort of 16-year-old. Kind of personally prefer the 12. I love the crispness and the purity of the 12-year-old cask strength, which is purely bourbon cask aged. but you know, you can't go wrong with a 16-year-old Lagavulin. Absolutely wonderful. This is the 1994 distilled bottling of the Distillers edition, bottled in 2010. So again, a 16-year-old, and you know, we shall see what influence the Pedro Ximenez cask has on the nose of this, shall we? Dense, very sweet, sort of chocolatey, malty, molassesy, almost sort of sherry. The peat is quite sweet actually. I mean, I don't know whether that's because the sweetness of the cask is giving it a sweet edge, or whether the peat itself is relatively sweet, but there's a bit of charcoal, coal dust. I think it's a nose I mean, it's a nice nose. It's pleasant. It's, like I said, I think I prefer mine slightly less adulterated. No, wrong word. Less abused by sherry, maybe. I don't know. It is incredibly sweet. It's not, like I say, it's kind of sort of molassesy, kind of malty, sweet. But you know, it's still got that slightly sort of herbally peat. Yeah, I mean, it's, you know, if this is your kind of cup of tea, you know, this is certainly a well-crafted malt. Okay, and on to the palate then. Very weighty, very soft, very smooth. Again, that sort of toffee, molasses, thick sherry, which is what PX is all about that sort of thick sherry character. It kind of all sort of impinges, shall we say, on the peatiness of it. There's a little bit of sort of sweet Parma violet, maybe, a bit of tar, but it's certainly not as, to me, it's not as interesting as the bourbon cask, or to that extent the 16-year-old. It's just the sherry is just sort of almost overloading all of the other character, and it just sort of gives it this just sweet veneer to it. I mean, you know, again, the quality of it is absolutely fantastic, but you know, it's, to me, it's just too heavy. It's just too much sweetness, and you know, I think the balance is somewhat skewed towards the PX. So although not a sort of a thumbs down, shall we say, for that one, but certainly not as good, or in the same league complexity wise, as what I think the Bushmills is. So there you go, you pay your money, taste choice. Right, okay, on to the Longrow. Right, 14 years old, bottled at cask strength of 56.1, hence the little pot of water. This was distilled in February 97, bottled in October 2011, 7,800 bottles produced. It spent 11 years in refill bourbon cask before having a final 3 years in Burgundy wood, or Pinot Noir as the case may be. Right, so this is going to be interesting. This is going to be relatively heavy peat versus lightish Pinot spicy fruit. So let's stick a nose in the glass and see what happens. Alcoholic, lots of high-toned, earthy peat. A lot of alcohol. You're fighting to get past all of that alcohol. Yeah, there's certainly some Burgundy cask influence here. A slight peppery red fruits. Yeah, peat's relatively astringent, it has to be said, but it's very alcoholic, and that's making it difficult to sort of like fight through and pick up anything else. So I mean, this will certainly need a drop of water, shall we say? So, okay, shall we see what this is like on the palate? Briny, pungently peaty, lots and lots of earthy peat. It's a slight crystalline red fruit character from the finish. A lot of alcohol, a lot of tannin, very, very drying. Some red licorice maybe. It's an odd one, it has to be said. I mean, it's just this crystallized fruit character, which is quite intriguing, which is coming through sort of on the finish. But the peat sort of like punches in right from the word go with all that lovely briny character. I think sort of neat, this isn't quite, well, it is working to a certain extent, but I mean obviously the high alcohol is kind of adding to that sort of dryness and adding to the sort of the wood tannins that are sort of just making the mouth dry. So let's add a little drop of water and see if that kind of opens it out a little bit and takes the edge off the alcohol, shall we say. Right, okay, let's have a sniff then. Right, well that's kind of brought the spicy Pinot fruit forward. It's got quite succulent now. There is a nice, pleasant sort of fruit sweetness. Again, sort of slightly crystallised. The peat is kind of like sort of moved down, shall we say, in the intensity stakes, but it's still really briny, really fishy. It's great stuff. This is a really interesting nose. It works. I think it really works quite well. It's, you know, a lot softer now, and the sort of the wine cask is more sort of overt and more noticeable, but the intensity of the sort of brininess and the distillery character is really sort of evident, if not the peat to a certain extent. Yeah, let's see if that works on the palate as well then, shall we? Yeah, it does. It's a lot softer. Certainly getting more of the Pinot Burgundy fruit first. Again, it's still got that crystallised character, and the peat again is fairly soft now, and it's just sort of coming through sort of on the finish. It's interesting. It does kind of work together. Yeah, I think that works just about. So it's an odd combination. It's probably not everybody's cup of tea, it has to be said, but you know, I think that's pretty enjoyable, it has to be said. Okay, let's sum these up then, shall we? The Bushmills, A1, absolutely A1. You know. Brilliant bottling, textbook use of a wine cask finish in my opinion. Wonderfully harmonious, all balanced. You're getting all the flavours, and you know, just a beautiful progression. I mean, this is just absolutely stunning. Available on our website, I hasten to add, or might be out of stock at the moment. I can't remember which, but it's certainly a line that we carry. And if you love your Irish whiskey, if you love Bushmills, then you know this is definitely worth a look, shall we say? The Lagavulin, okay, not entirely my cup of tea. It's not a bottling that I'm going to sort of rave about and go, yeah, this is the dog's dewberry, shall we say? But if you like your molassesy kind of sweet sort of sherry and peat, then you know it's okay. It does the job. It's not bad. The quality is certainly pretty good. Again, don't have this particular bottling in stock. With it's now moved on to whatever the current release is. I forget now. But you know, if that's your cup of tea, and you know, it's certainly a popular whiskey. It has to be said. So. Quite expensive, but you know, popular nevertheless. Burgundy wood. I think we've got a few bottles of this left now. It's a weird one, it has to be said. You know, can't say I've tasted too many quite like it. It has to be said. Yeah, I like it. I like slightly, as you know, malts and spirits that are left of centre, and there's certainly falls into that category, and it does work. It does show that peat and Burgundy wood or wine cask finish does work to a certain extent. Although once you do put a drop of water with it, the peat kind of does diminish to a certain degree. And you know, you're kind of more left with sort of like a Burgundy wood and briny, sort of salty, Longrowy, slightly peated, you know, kind of character. But yeah, I think it kind of works. Again, it's not particularly cheap, but you know, if that sounds like your cup of tea, then you know, pop along to our website www.gauntleys.com and pick yourself up a bottle. I think we've probably got a few left now. Not very many, but yeah, certainly worth it. So I guess that's pretty much about it for now. So all that's left to say is grab your 3 wood and good dramming. I'm too soft, I'm too hard, I'm too brave, I'm too scared, I'm trivial, I'm serious. Is anyone even hearing this? You can't finish stomping around. I can edit that out, you know, it's an outtake at the end of the day. Julia makes an appearance yet again. Get these interruptions when I'm at work.
Oh, shut up, Chris.
Okay, and on to the palate then.